Well, hello there. Welcome back to My Life as a Landlord. I am Dr. Jen, and I am so pleased that you are taking an interest in your education as a landlord. Whether you're a nugget landlord or a newbie landlord, either way, we're happy that you are here. Now, if you've been following our journey, you know that Mike and I are currently building Pine Tree Community RV Park in Powell River, British Columbia, north of Vancouver. And let's just say our neighbors aren't exactly excited about the new development. So, to help navigate these waters and talk about the deeper purpose of what we're doing here at this RV park, I have welcomed Dave and Cory to the show to help us with all of this and building community. Welcome.
We're glad to be here, Jennifer. Good to see you again.
Likewise.
Thanks for having us, Jennifer. It's an honor.
Absolutely, absolutely. Super happy. Now, both of you, Dave, I know your background is deep into both real estate and all kinds of fun
Minis-
landlord stuff.
in ministry, yeah, I had a 20 plus years in ministry and a double master's degree from seminary, and so I have a heart for people, and I would love it if your neighborhood was next to mine. I'd be able to go check out all these cool RVs and ask people questions about it. Hey, what do you like about it? And if you ever decide you want to go off and let's swap or something, I would find that to be fun. Absolutely fascinating.
So fun. Now, Cory, tell me a bit about your take on community and housing and real estate. I'm assuming that you've known Dave a while. You and I are new meeting, but tell me a little bit more about your background.
So, background is CPA, went to school, was trained to be a CPA, practiced CPA for 20 plus years, worked in public accounting, worked for Wachovia and Wells Fargo Bank. All along the way, I did stuff kind of on my own, entrepreneurial spirit. I was the black sheep of the family from the sense I was the only one that had a W-2 job for many years.
Oh,
Everyone else looked at me and says, "Why aren't you doing these other things?" And I was doing them on the side. But getting to the heart of who I am and what I do those things because I care about people. And Dave and I actually connected as a result of that very issue. Building community, connection, the spirit for service, for others. That's where we connected in a business setting, and it started our business relationship. So at our heart, we love business, we love people, and we love communities.
fantastic. Well, Cory, I know there's been some discussion about what a quote unquote normal neighborhood is supposed to look like. What's your take on that? What would a normal neighborhood look like?
Well, so a normal neighborhood today, I may not be as happy with what normal is, if you put that in quotes. A normal neighborhood today sometimes has less connection than I think would be ideal. So one thing that we focus on is trying to build connection, build community, build faith in each other, and in what you can do together. So if I think normal, I would say I'm a little disappointed in what normal neighborhoods look like for many people today versus what I think they should look like.
Well, what should they look like? What if you were to build a neighborhood, what would it look like?
Well, it should have connection. So if I were to define what's the most important thing to me that would create a neighborhood to being the thing that in my mind it should be, is a connection. A connection to each other, to community. Can I go to my neighbor, and Dave has studied this extensively as far as, do you have a neighbor you can rely on that you can
Mm,
call to help you? If you don't have that, then I think you're missing an essential part of what a neighborhood is and should be. So I think connection is critical, and we have to get to know the people around us to do that.
right. Now, Dave, what do you take as what the connection is? Like we're building our RV park here and we call it the community RV park. The street name is Pine Tree. So we named it Pine Tree Community RV Park. If we were to try to inject connection into what Cory just said, what kind of things would we do here?
Well, I'm a big advocate of, I asked the question, does anybody like me have a youngster in their mid 20s soon to enter today's housing market?
Right.
And if so, will they find the affordable house of their dreams and their savings? Probably not. Most of them aren't.
Yeah.
When I bought my first property at age 24, the average first time home buyer's age had slipped from 26 up to 28. And so that was a while back. But today, the first time home buyer's age average is 40 or more, which implies that most of them are going to rent for a couple of decades. They may be raising kids and living lives in those things. So circling back to your question, I actually have a youngster who will be going out into that world. He lives in New York City. He loves New York City. He finds that a dump in Brooklyn will cost him 2 million bucks, and you're going up from there. A nice house will run more in the 5 to 7 million range, up to 70 million if you want a really nice one, somewhere in that range. And more than likely, he'll be renting for a while and traveling and doing virtual stuff. Smart kid, PhD at Columbia University, interviewing with a quantitative trading company that has offices in Dubai and Sydney and London and Paris. So chances are he might be one of the exceptions, but for the most part, if he does live in an apartment community, what do I want him to live in? Do I want him to live in the average B and C class property that are affordable, that are under 3,000 a month? They don't know, most residents don't know two neighbors that they could call late at night if suddenly something went wrong with me. I got to be the emergency room. Who do I call? In my situation, I do because I grew up with parents that believed in rich community everywhere they went. And so they connected with every neighbor. They knew all the neighbors' kids' names. They knew everybody's phone numbers. They just did it wherever they went. That was their, part of their mission, part of who they were. So I grew up seeing that being normal. And then when I grew up in life and went away from my parents, I started, well, it's not normal at all. And to me, well, why can't it be normal? Why can't we get to know our neighbors? And I do. We know our next door neighbors next to us where I reside for the last 21 or 2 years on a golf course. We both are on the 11th green. I happen to be, I guess, what's called a more of a conservative Christian, likes to go to church, disciple maker, that type thing. He's a depressed atheist. We're great friends. We've done a lot of things together. We know each other's families. We know their phone numbers. We know the mother-in-law that stays with them, whole thing. But we just build relationships. And so I think that's critical. And when I was coming out of college and going to leave the insurance business as a college unit director and be an executive search guy, and the church called and said, "Would you come and be our youth minister?" Somebody recommended you. And I said, "Well, tell me about your youth group." Dave, we don't have a youth group. I said, "Do you want me to be a youth minister where you don't have a youth ministry?" So tell me about that. He said, "Well, we got 7 or 8 different school districts around here, and the kids, when they do come here, even when we have shared meals, they don't talk to each other. They don't have anything to do with each other. That's you want me to sort of help them to gel and fuse." I said, "Yeah, can you do that?" I said, "Would love it." And so what I would do is what my son experienced when he went away 4 hours at age 16, 4 hours away at School of Science and Math. And they created this great, rich, caring, connected community. And I watched how they did it. It wasn't the fancy buildings, it wasn't fancy anything, but they would have shared meals together. They would have icebreaker events. They'd have resident appreciation events. They would teach each student by modeling it. The teachers would ask them, "How are you doing? How are you doing really?" And then they would teach people to listen with empathy and to ask that every day. They would do team things together. So in apartment communities, you would have a resident appreciation event or a social thing once a month. If you needed to call on a nonprofit to help you with that, you could. You would start a community newsletter that celebrates birthdays and wins. You could have a homework club for the kids. You could have tutors that come in, either nonprofit tutors through online or through in person. Our church does tutoring 4 days a week for all of the kids in Hendersonville or Henderson County. If you're interested or whatever it is, just come on in and we'll help you. So imagine if you, like me, have a 25-year-old going into that environment, do you want them to be what the Surgeon General talked about in 2023? They called it the loneliness epidemic. Approximately 1 in 2 Americans have it. It's the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. They have higher incidences of heart disease, stroke, like 50% higher chances of dementia, a lot of really bad, shorter lifespans, not rich. Or would you want them to have a life rich, vibrant, where they can thrive because their sense of belonging and their sense of needs are met? That would be important to me. So, if you want all apartment communities to be one or the other, which would it be? Same thing as RV parks, the same thing as anything else. Just creating community isn't expensive. It just takes a little intentionality. So sorry for that long answer to your short question.
That's amazing. Well, I just find it really intriguing. 15 cigarettes with the health problems, the health issues that result from that. And that's equating from basically a broken heart. That's kind of how I take it, is people are so lonely that they don't have any connection at all, as you say. And how do we get people off their phones? Is it that in-person touch? Is it that in-person connection and get everybody in the same room and then what? Throw a subject at it or sewing or
I agree with you
ministry?
that these things can be helpful tools, but I do think, if you look at reality, we are the most technically or digitally connected generation in the world in the past. However, we are the most disconnected socially. Most people live just feet away from neighbors they've never met. For some reason, they don't think of it. Either they think of we're temporary, we've got too much going on. Oh, I've got to check my either Instagram feed or Facebook feed or my, email or whatever it is. Something's got to be more important than that person next door.
Right.
And I think it's just a shift of teaching people that no, if you want to live in a rich community and get rid of this connection crisis that the Surgeon General wrote about in 2023, and it's still out there, that there's these problems, and they tend to be in the more affordable apartments. If you're paying 3 to 5 grand a month in rent, as some friends I met at a recent car club meeting at a big auto center where they house exotic cars, and it was the Porsche Club meeting, and I met a new member, said, "Where do you live?" So we live right down here in the Ash. I said, "Gosh, I'm right next door in High Vista. You're right in between the cliffs and High Vista, gated golf communities." And
Mm,
so they put a high-end luxury thing there, and they all have one or two or three apartments below that, but most of them are paying 3 to 5 grand. And there you'll have a social program. But for the vast majority of Americans who aren't paying 3 to 5 in rent plus fees and utilities and all that, most of them are in places where the sponsors or the general partners just hadn't really thought of it yet. They
mm,
should think of it because Witten Data did a study of 55 apartment communities from Arizona through Georgia, 4 years running, and studied what's the difference in terms of resident connection if you measure that, and what's the difference financially. They found that financially, the average apartment community, their net operating income went up an average of 138,000 to as much as 180,000 per year without touching rents. So it was a function of you decreased your turnover by connecting everyone where they knew at least seven neighbors and then they liked each other. You reduce the marketing expenses to fill those empty seats. So it is good business. It's good practice. In other words, how do churches grow? How do civic, like I'm part of Rotary, the chairman of the care committee for Rotary. How do Rotary clubs go? We're one of the largest clubs in North Carolina. Well, you have a care committee, you have a chairman of the care committee, and you practice things to make people feel valued, residents known, and that sort of thing. So to me, why is it not normal? Like say, I grew up with, these two parents that was their normal was this is the way we're going to live. So, and Cory was raised with six kids, right? I was raised as one of four. You were raised as one of six, and Cory has
Right.
four. I wanted six kids, by the way. So we both experienced rich community, and we just think that that should be part of the practice of every community out there. And if we can do that for America, and it's not hard, take simple steps, then we can make America a loving, caring community again
hmm
instead of a divided, folks that are hiding behind. You see husbands and wives looking at their phone over dinner. Uh, what if we improve that by just helping people to connect? And so I'm a big advocate of that. Love the concept of that's a mission in life. Don't want to go to my grave without having, somebody thought of putting that on my tombstone.
Amazing. Cory, what's your take when you're trying to start a community or you've got people moving into community, people are shuffling around in these housing units and whether they're apartments or subdivisions or like us, we're building an RV park right next to a subdivision and you've got a problem because you're the unpopular new neighbor. How do you deal with that?
That that's tough. And let me just say, we experienced that a little bit as a family when we moved from California to South Carolina. We moved into a neighborhood. I knew some of the neighbors because I had a family member in the neighborhood. But when you take the place of a really popular neighbor or someone that people really liked, they're wondering about the new person. What are they going to be like? Are they going to be as nice? Are they going to interfere with the things that I like doing? Are they going to be upset when I'm gardening or whatever I'm doing. Um, Long story short, there was no issue, but coming into a situation where you're replacing a very cherished person can be difficult. But getting more to I think your question, when we're in a community, the biggest thing that I think that can happen to accelerate um, and solidify kind of the connection comes down to a very simple principle, and that is service. What can I do for you? Even in the sense of maybe a surprise. So just a few weeks ago, a friend of mine came and presented some material and said he goes down to the state capitol in Columbia for us and speaks with the senators and the representatives there. When he was there, he met with some individuals. Some had been in government for over a decade, and one of them was completely flabbergasted when my friend said, "What can we do for you? How can we
Mhm.
help you? I have a group of volunteers that would like to help your constituents. What could we do for you?" He said, "My first time in 10 years or 10 plus years being here, no one's ever come to me asking what they can do for me. Every time it's coming to see me, how can I help them?" So to me, the fastest way to accelerate that connection is to have that mindset. The how can I help you? One thing that Dave does when we talk just on a normal basis, "Cory, is there anything that I can do for you or your tribe, your family?" And he means it and he'll do it. And that in and of itself makes so much headway. You get down the road, down the path to connection so fast by doing that.
I I absolutely agree. And I do that often. And I love it when people are so shocked. Really, it's
Yeah.
unexpected when you're saying, oh, because typically the person I'm talking to is a doer. They're a solution thinker. And so when you turn the tables, because they're always the one getting approached for help, when you turn the tables and say, what are you working on that I could help you with? And it's sort of like, what? What what just happened? One of the issues we're having here at our Pine Tree Community RV Park is with our subdivision neighbors. We have about 40 houses right next door, and they're scared. They're scared and they are mad because they don't know. And they think that we're creating trailer park trash, and they have no idea what we're doing. And so what we're doing is I've already created the website. We're having a big party and we're inviting them all. In fact, we're inviting the whole town to the point where we're starting to realize that we're probably going to run out of parking. But the whole idea here is that we've invited a band. We've got Rotary and Search and Rescue coming to do games and food and things by donation. And the whole idea here is come and see what we've built. We're going to create a scavenger hunt so people can go around the park and learn different things. And we'll have a bubble station for kids and things like that. Pet friendly, yeah. And before that, though, I'm going to have little cards made up, and Michael and I are personally going to walk the entire subdivision and talk to them and invite them personally. And please come over and see what we're doing. And the whole staff is understanding that the whole idea of this is more, let's create a place to thrive, not just to be. And I think at the heart of this, the word community is right. And it's different. Most people don't see this. They see riffraff. The former owner of this property was a hoarder and a let's just say he was involved in some things he probably shouldn't have been involved in. And so when we came in and we've completely changed the landscape, we've got trucks and excavators, and so it's loud, right? It's going to be loud. We're going to have people with RVs here. It's a big change and they're scared. And so we're going to kick it off not just with our marketing, but in-person connection and then having them come over. It's going to be interesting because I know there are some characters who've already walked by and cursing me and flipping me off and all that, and that's fine. But I also go, okay, I will be your enemy until you need me. Anyway, let's keep going with this. I appreciate both of your insight on all of this. I wanted to kind of shift gears here for a second because we're talking about affordability. You both have already mentioned it about how the average age of the first time home buyer is getting later and later, not just in America. Really, it's happening globally. I mean, I'm sitting here in
Mhm.
Canada, and the question then becomes, how do we keep trying to reinvent what a neighborhood looks like, but an affordable one? Is this more mobile homes, RV parks, just normal, you know, middle-aged people trying to live, but how do we make it also affordable? Because that's typically means it's higher density. I mean, there's a bit of a balance there. And so it's not just community, it's also affordability. How do we throw that wrinkle of money into it too? Sorry, long question. Either of you.
Okay.
Well,
I can take a stab, or you want to go first, Cory?
go ahead, Dave, and now I have a thought I'd like to share as well.
Well, there are so many things you can do to create what's called other income other than just simply raising rents. Raising rents is a part of probably what you have to do. Correct me if I'm wrong, since pre-COVID and you got a global pandemic issue that came, utilities have risen a bit since then. Taxes have risen a bit since then. Costs of construction have risen a bit since then. So thus there's pressure and needs to raise rents at times. And it's just life. Insurance has gone up dramatically. I'm talking almost 50% in premiums. So I look at, I wonder if we could set up a building for a car wash and also a dog wash, and somebody would pay a monthly membership to be able to wash their dog whenever they want to, or wash their car whenever they want to. And we could maintain that kind of like a garage with a place for you. But, I've got a membership to a car wash. You basically create it that way and offer them a discount. But anyways, you can create revenue by just simply taking care of them instead of them having to drive out 15 or 20 minutes elsewhere for that. Same thing with the dog wash. Could you create a dog park somewhere where you got a little place where they can walk, a little place where the dogs can skip? Could we put vending machines in there? They're probably going to, get sodas or snacks somewhere else. There's ways to have companies that come in and you split the profits, but they maintain the stuff. Same thing with laundromats. Are there things you can do to serve your people? If they don't like to take their trash to the dumpster, could you have somebody that collects it for them and charges them a fee, a modest fee for that, make it voluntary? Are there things in terms of extra parking, maybe some covered parking? Somebody's got an old precious sports car they want to, instead of putting it under a cover, putting it under a, come up with something and just charge for the, what other things can you do to help people and improve people other than, let's say if this is a church, instead of saying everybody pull out your pocketbooks, increase your tithe or your pledge or something as a Methodist church, increase that X% please, because what you look at, what can we do to help and bless people? So there's that approach. And the other thing is if you help people get connected and they love the neighborhood and they love their neighbors and they love the way they feel like they have a sense of belonging, they're connected, they're valued, they're appreciated who they are, then they want their friends to move into this neighborhood. Typically they don't move out so much. So your attrition, your turnover goes down, which is one of your biggest costs, and your marketing to fill those empty spots goes down because that's one of your biggest costs. So there's ways to be profitable by being good neighbors. I think it makes good business sense. As I said, the Witten data did a study of 55 communities from Arizona to Georgia, found that their net operating incomes went up significantly. And if you know what cap rate you're at, you can do the math and say that that created, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million in value by doing those things. So there are items that can be done. I just think if the world would focus on being great neighbors and creating great neighborhoods, what would our world look like? And then would the Surgeon General possibly write about some other problem other than the loneliness epidemic in America?
Amazing. Cory, what's your take?
Yeah. Yeah, so Jennifer, as you talked about the affordability crisis essentially that we have not only in America but throughout the world, Canada, all over. I have friends in Brazil and in South America and other countries that it exists. It exists. So one thing I love what you're doing. I love that an RV park neighborhood. It's been thought about or stereotyped in many different ways. What I love, what I absolutely love is the variety that exists for us in the world today. So it fills a very important um, niche or market from my perspective. One of the businesses I'm involved in is a private investigative company. So you
Oh,
would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't, Jennifer, how many of the people that we've worked with over the years, even in interviews or we've hired them on and they've worked with us as a private investigator, they say if they don't currently have, they want to live in a place just like what you've created. That is their aspiration. That's their goal. I want to get there. And for them, it creates the things that give them the space that they want. They don't want to take care of a whole lot of stuff. They have somewhat limited capital and they look at it as, wow, I'm getting all the things I need and want right here, and it's fitting me perfectly. And from an affordability standpoint, those people, they didn't want to buy and don't want to own and have issues related with ownership of a house.
yeah.
But an RV, they already have one or they're saving to get one. And so it's a really neat place to be. So from an affordability perspective, I'm glad there's options. And
Mhm.
your particular project is creating a really neat opportunity for those people and also for people that enjoy traveling and seeing the world and spending time in beautiful places.
Absolutely. It's really interesting because up until now, we have done all long-term rentals, both in the US and in Canada. And so I've had a bit of a learning curve. So give me a second here. I just want to educate you and the listeners on what the difference is between what we've created and what we already have. Because most landlords have long-term rentals. That's why they're listening to this podcast, right? So long-term rentals is permanent housing. That's their primary residence. They get mail there. They pay the utilities there, probably. That's where they get their phone bill. That's where they put their Christmas tree. And when you're talking about more of an RV park implies temporary. It implies not their primary residence. This is very interesting because we're starting to see some of this blend. So my brand new RV park with my brand new well, private well, septic system, health inspector, electrical inspector, gas inspector, all of these, because we live in an area where there is no building bylaw and there's no zoning bylaw. Can you imagine? That's why we've created this here, is because we didn't need anybody's permission except the safety authorities. That's who we had to deal with. But the trick is with the septic tanks, I'm only allowed to have our guests stay 180 days. That's it. But the reset time is 3 days. So we do 180 days stay, which of course I'm offering deep discounts because I want them to stay for 180 days. I want them to bring their kids and their dogs. I want them to be part of the community. They go have another adventure for 72 hours somewhere else in our amazing region, or they go and they get stuff fixed because let's face it, stuff breaks down. It's right. They've got to leave and do a couple things and then come back and if they've behaved. But the other thing that happens, British Columbia has had a bit of an epidemic with people living in RVs and fifth wheels and tiny homes and things like that, where if they don't move, if they are in a temporary situation, but they don't have to leave, they don't have to shift, whatever, it establishes a tenancy, meaning it is their primary residence now. And as a result, now you have to have a lease. Now you have to evict them. See, here it's a license to occupy. It's basically a hotel room. It's a very different concept. They can stay here, but they can't live here. But they can be here a long time if they play their cards right. So there's a very interesting line of delineation at 180 days. One, because of my septic tank, and that's the health inspector, and he is watching and he will check me. So that is how we have to do it. 180 days hard stop. They have to leave the property for 3 days with all their stuff. They can't keep their stuff here. They actually have to leave and then they come back. So that keeps the license to occupy valid. It keeps the health inspector happy. And let's face it, not everybody likes every spot that they're in. If they've befriended somebody on a different road in a different spot or their dogs get along, you know how it goes. So maybe they want to shift and go into a pad right near their friend, right? And then they can be there for 6 months. So that's another little wrinkle where I go, I have to now enforce this 180-day hard stop because I don't want to establish tenancy. I don't want the health inspector to shut me down. How do I create community knowing that. Cory, anything?
That's tough, but you
Yeah.
know what it is? It's an opportunity too, right?
Yeah.
It's an opportunity. So I love what, and you already kind of hit on it. Like, so when someone moves, like you get to choose your new immediate neighbors potentially.
Right.
And I'm assuming could have this evolution where you started in one place. It reminds me of when I went to college, and as a freshman, everyone goes and you're there, and not many people knew their roommates. Some people did, and the first semester, and then you very quickly find out who you want your neighbor and immediate neighbor, bed partner, in the next twin bed to be. So I think there's some opportunity, some challenge, but an opportunity to create even more community because people self-select themselves. Hey, we
Mhm.
get along and we're a thing. We're going to spend our next 180 days together in pads A and B beside each other
Right.
when we were in A and Z.
Right.
So yeah, that's a neat concept, and hopefully that will be very successful as your friends there get to navigate that.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting take. Dave, anything that you see that might be another opportunity, especially given the, oh, are you want to share? Okay.
Well, I can make a point here and just if you have the ability to share just for a
Yeah, go
second, I'll
ahead.
share my screen. I won't take that long with it,
No,
but I
that's
will
fine.
say here is showing this is Zillow showing some of the listings that we have rented on Zillow, and it'll show you, different addresses and different locations and different styles. Some of them are two bedrooms, some are three bedrooms, some are four bedroom. There's a five bedroom, there's a four bedroom, three bath, there's a four bedroom, two bath A-frame on 3 acres, and one's on 5 or 7 acres, and so on. So as you look at these, the majority, I'm going to say two-thirds of these are short-term rentals. In other words, let's stop the share.
Okay.
Most
Okay.
of ours revenue is what's called variable income. We're in the process of transitioning and selling some assets and rolling it over into more multifamily. However, we've done, I think when we started almost a decade ago, we pretty quickly had 3,000 guests per year short term. And so here's my question. How popular do you think that makes you to the neighbors on the right and the left side of that?
Mm,
This town I watched the arguments in front of the town council where people would on one side were saying, well, we can't afford real estate here in the Asheville area. Asheville, North Carolina is more expensive than other places in the North Carolina. Unless can we rent out a room or two, unless we do that. And you had the other side of the crowd said, I'm tired of drunk, naked people walking through my yard and banging on my child's window saying, let me in, And so they had these two different groups. And so, like the wise baby splitter Solomon's concept, the town council said, what we're going to do is what a lot of other counties and cities have done. We're going to say, if you're in the city limits, we have the ability to send you, these are our requirements. You're going to be here for 30 days or more. So you're part of the community for a little bit longer. Or if you're going to rent out something short term in the city limits, somebody has to live there and manage the tenants so you can rent out up to two bedrooms. And so we've been under that. And, how do you, if let's say you have a long term tenant down below and up top of a house, you've got a short term tenant, they're from New York and they come in at 3 in the morning and the boyfriend girlfriend noises are too loud and the bed's banging on the floors and the girls downstairs got to go to work and they knock and say, and then this person feels offended. I want to move, want my money back. Because, we've dealt with a lot of issues like that, as well as gone to a lot of HOAs virtually like this, as well as in person dealing with people who were hostile. And you smile a lot, as Cory would say, you become a good neighbor. So I would just say I have a lot of experience with short-term, mid-term rental and all of that. What I try to do with the neighbors is say, hey, such and so is coming in. They're a medical professional. This is their background. They'll be here soon. Can you make them feel welcome? And what can I do that would help you? And so we've developed, I made the point, as Cory would say, to be a great neighbor to every one of these neighborhoods. And after a hurricane, every one of them were taking up collections to fix the roads, fix the trees. And so you had to shell out money, shell out money. But whatever it takes to be a good neighbor, listening, calling them, keeping them in the loop, explaining to them that I can relate to that. I think that's unacceptable. Really sorry that happened. Sometimes. So it comes from the heart, I think. If you have a heart to continue to care for people, it will work out, is my experience over time. Eventually, that idea, that heart helps to win people over. Are there some exceptions? Possibly, but the most part, you win. I say there's a few exceptions that we'll just have to deal with. They aren't going to be accepting, but I'm going to say the vast majority can be persuaded.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I have a more philosophical question for you, Dave. I know you've written books, you've been in ministry, you're in car clubs, you lead small groups, you're in Rotary, Toastmasters, you've done it all. What do you see or what do you want your ultimate legacy to be?
Well, um, hmm, positively impacting the world. I think, every morning, part of my morning affirmations and morning prayers and that sort of thing is, Moses had a verse in the Psalm said, Lord, teach us to number our days that we may develop a heart of wisdom. And I said, what that means is teach us to number our minutes, mind our schedules, and make sure that every day, every minute, that we have a positive impact on all of God's creatures here, be they animal or human or whatever it is, that we want to have a great interaction with them, that we cherish them as much as say God does. And so if you do that, then you're creating a better environment and a better world for them. I think a lawyer that's renting a condo of ours that overlooks the city is coming to town. I said, well, listen, if you want to go to Rotary, ours meets every Thursday from 12:30 to 1:30. Come and be my guest, enjoy the meal, meet the town, the people who, move and stir the drink. If you're up for golf sometime, I live on a golf course, come on down. If you're up for dinner, come on down. We can eat at the pub or we can eat at my house. And he said, really? I said, yeah, come on over to me. So we ate dinner at my house. And he said, I've never seen a landlord do that before. So I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, you are a new neighbor coming to live for indefinitely 3 to 6 months, possibly 12, 18 months, 24. You're thinking you might even move here. Why would I not want to welcome you as a new neighbor and say, welcome if you need a place to eat or if you have a place to play golf or, go to clubs? Why would I not do that? He said, well, I just haven't, most of these guys are pretty hardcore. It's just kind of unique. I said, well, it doesn't have to be that way. If you choose to not pay rent, I will be texting and calling you. And it doesn't mean you can't be a good business person, but in terms of being a good human, I think that is something that we all should strive to do. We are in the people business. I read the book 26 years ago, 25 years ago by Bill Marriott titled The Spirit to Serve, and
Mm.
he tried to teach his passion to serve the guests and try to teach all of his associates, please take care of our guests like they are the most precious commodities in the world, like they're our treasured friends and neighbors. And if you'll do that, we'll take care of you. And so that philosophy is something you can carry with you anywhere. And I think if you'll apply it and imply it in everything you do, all of us can leave a great legacy that you had a great impact on your neighborhoods, on world, on people, and I think that can become contagious.
I love that word. That's a great word, contagious. I also aspire to be a great human. Cory, what's your take? You've got four kids. I know you aspire to be a great dad and a great influencer, not only on your friends and family, but in your community. But what legacy do you want to leave as well? Or did Dave cover it? Maybe he hit it all.
Well, Dave, as usual, did a phenomenal job. I really respect him and appreciate his input and friendship. It's amazing. For me personally, I would put being a good dad, put that in quotes. Being a good dad is it's at the top of my list. But what I want most is I want my children to know that I love them
Hmm.
unconditionally. Does not matter what they do, what they've done, what they might do. I love them. I
Yeah.
truly love them. And my legacy, what I would love people to think of me as, is someone that put people first, people before problems,
Hmm.
and was willing and always wanted to help them move forward in their life. Whatever their next step is, I don't know what it is. They may not know what it is, but let's figure it out and take it together. Let's do it. So the connection, the community, that to me would be a life well lived if other people thought of me as a person that was on their team, on their side, wanting to walk with them in whatever that next step was.
Amazing. Amazing. Cory, if a listener wants to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
They can reach me at Cory at Chateau Capital, same as Dave. It's an easy place to reach me. And I would love to connect with any of your listeners. If there's anything that I can do to help, I would be fulfilled. My cup would be filled if I could do that.
That would be amazing. Thank you. Dave, any party thoughts?
What I'm going to do is put our email addresses in the chat there. So it's David at chateaucapital.fund or Cory at chateaucapital.fund. If you are a landlord and you're listening, then profits also matter. And so how we manage our properties and how we market and how we pivot and find markets is important. To me, part of that legacy is I grew up as a ministry kid where if people hadn't reached out to and helped us and our family, we might not have had a lot of, Christmas or whatever it would be. So to me, it's important that we work hard enough and earn enough to be a blessing to others and that we are able to help when asked for help. So that is something, it's not just about how great of a neighbor can we be. We also need to run good businesses and acquire properties affordably and repair them and maintain them affordably and all those things we're not talking about today. So not to discount that if somebody's listening to and said, oh, heck, if I just did that, I'd be broke. No, not necessarily. You can do both. That'd be my input is to say you can have a good business. You can oversee multifamily properties, commercial properties as Cory and I do, and restaurants as Cory does, and so on, and short-term or mid-term rentals, but you can have a positive impact while you earn well. And I think that's important to know that operating well actually help. They serve each other. They're complementary. They're not against each other at all. In fact, it's being a good neighbor and creating good neighborhoods is great for your business and great for your commodity, if you want to look at it that way. That would be a parting thought I would leave based on the discussion today, if that's all right.
Absolutely. That sounds wonderful. Well, thank you both for joining me on the show. I super appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Always good to catch up with you and hope to catch up with you again soon. If you're our way, blow the horn. We'd love to host you.
Thank you so much. We might just do that. You never know.
Be great.